Hello, tea family. How are you tonight? Hopefully, you're having a wonderful day. Weather's going to be cooler today where I am. That's always super exciting. For those of you that are joining us for the very first time, welcome, welcome. Welcome to being part of our tea family. Please feel free to say hello in the comments or the chat, depending on what uh, platform you're watching this from. We're going to go ahead and get started right away. I'm going to start the water. Today I decided I'm going to do Maiden's Blush Tea, and we are going to be talking about pairing tea and food, but we're going to go way more in depth than I've gone previously. So I wanted to kind of give everybody a chance to get online. It always takes an extra second, but I really wanted to talk about that. It is really important to, you know, really get it right sometimes when you're eating a certain food or when you're drinking a certain tea to match things up. Now, for the most part, your teas and food are going to pair just fine. But if you really want it to be amazing or you don't want to make one of the mistakes we'll talk about today, we can help with that. Now, like I said, today I'm going to be drinking something a little more unusual. I'm going to have our Maiden's Blush, which is a Rooibos Rose Petal blend that we have. Now, this it was only supposed to be a June time blend, but that's just how it is. Whatever it seems like it's only going to be a limited time blend. A lot of times those in the beginning ended up being year round because it was so popular. This one is great because it doesn't have, the rose petals don't make it super floral. They add like a sweetness. We often get accused when we're at events, and this is one of the free samples, of adding honey to it. And we're always telling people, no, our samples have no sweetener of any kind in them. We do that intentionally. And people swear that they test the honey. But Maiden's Blush is what we're going to be making today. That is an herbal tea. It is completely caffeine free, so it's a nice tea to have at the end of the day. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to boil the water as we come in. Now, just because we're going to be talking about tea and food pairing today does not mean that you can't ask your questions. So if you have any questions or comments or anything, feel free to put those in the chat or comments, depending on how you're seeing this. Oh, excuse me, I am sleepy today. You may or may not have realized that I was out of state today and went to not today, this week, and went to the other side of the country, and yeah, I'm still recovering. A couple of hours time change for whatever reason really got to me this week. I think it was also because I kept staying up for over 24 hours at a time. I had 2 days in the last week that I was up for over 24 hours, and I am not a college student doing that anymore. So, welcome everybody. It's nice to see everybody. We are going to be making Maiden's Blush today, and we are going to go ahead and get started while this is going. So before we really start talking about specific food and tea pairing, I want to talk about just a little bit about why this is important. So like wine, tea has some very complex flavor profiles. You notice that when a few weeks ago when we created our own tea blend, that White Garden, it's very, very delicate balance between the teas and everything like that. Well, that adds a complex flavor, which we can sometimes clash with the food or enhance the food. The secret is finding that balance in the pairing and deciding right off, do you want it to complement or do you want it to contrast? And then even when it contrasts, it can't be too much. You don't want the food or the tea to overpower. So a couple of things to consider right in the beginning are the flavor intensity. So some teas that are lighter, Harmony, Emerald Garden, the White Garden that we did, they're really going to be paired best with delicate foods that are not as robust or spicy or things like that for the most part. But black teas like Breakfast Blend or Serene Sunrise, Morning Irish, those are going to be able to stand up to a heartier, richer dish like a steak on the grill. So you want to think about that flavor intensity and how intense the flavor is. Number two, in considering tea and food pairings, you want to think about the astringency. So teas that are have a higher tannin count, they're going to be more astringent. They're going to be a little bit more robust. They can be bitter. More on that. Remind me, I will talk about that later. When I was in California, oh my goodness, I had one of the world's most bitter teas, and I know I brewed it properly. That's another story. Another story. Let me stay focused. So teas with a higher tannin content, like an Earl's Blend or a black tea, like a Morning Irish, they're going to have a better ability to cut through fatty or oily foods, which makes them the better match for kind of those heavier dishes. Number three, sweetness. Naturally sweet teas like a green tea that has fruit in it or a very fruity herbal blend is going to be better to complement desserts or complement something that is salty or spicy. So the sweetness factor, because a Harmony tea is super light, super delicate, but it has a sweetness to it. The peach tea, okay. The Summer Kiss that ended yesterday, as amazing as it was, we have been freeze drying the peaches for next year because they just came in from Colorado. We have a friend that she picks her friend, my friend, has a friend, and that friend owns the orchard, and she picks them, and then my friend picks them up the next day, and then we had them home and we're freeze drying them literally less than 72 hours off the tree, and they have been tasted, and it's going to be even a higher peach flavor next year. We might have to actually adjust it down a little bit. So, side note on that one. Okay. And the fourth thing to consider when you're doing overall tea and food pairing is the aroma. Uh, so just like we love the smell of food, and you can walk in someplace, you walk into a bakery and you get that baked good, the breads and the donuts and the cupcakes, and you have all the sweet and carby type smells. The scent of your tea should kind of harmonize with the aroma of your food. You don't want them to contrast. So like a tea that has a floral note to it but isn't overly floral, like our Maiden's Blush that we're making today, is going to go really well with an aromatic dish. Whereas an earthier tea, more like the green teas and that like Emerald Garden, are going to pair better with a umami rich food type of thing. So I wanted to start us off there. Now, I'm going to go back to my story on California as I'm about to pour Maiden's Blush. Here is what it looks like. It is literally just rooibos and rose petals. We get our rose petals from Egypt. That is actually one of the best places to get them, from a little co-op there, and that allows us to have really just a local family, local co-op doing it, keep the quality, make sure it's truly organic and not just, hey, I'm going to claim organic. So, all right. Alrighty then, let's put this down. It's the best part. Now I have room. All right, and set my timer. So I'm in California. I committed a heinous crime against humanity. In my rush to pack everything, there was one thing I forgot: my tea. I had everything else I needed, but I forgot my tea. Not a good start. So I did purchase some tea that was a nice higher quality, and I kind of was like, okay, this is cool. I get to try some tea. It was a black tea. It was a black tea blend. I had purchased spring water. I had a pot, so that I had a kettle so that didn't have coffee or anything in it. So like I had it set so that I could make the perfect cup of tea. I took one sip, spit it into the sink in my hotel room, and about cried because I really needed caffeine. I had been up probably 27 and a half hours the day before, only had about 3.5, 4 hours of sleep, and I needed to be able to go to my work conference and be completely focused on a very tough subject all day. I was like, no. I was like, okay, okay, I'm gonna just throw this cup out. We all know that. And then I thought, rather than brew it for an extra minute, I'll brew it for a minute less. So I only brewed the second brew. I only brewed for 2 minutes, which should normally be 4. It was still so bitter, but at that point, I was desperate for the caffeine. I I just couldn't believe it. My poor husband had to listen to me whine about it by text, but I was like, I'm not ever gonna forget my tea again, and then I'm not ever buying this tea again. It was really, really sad. I did get a different tea. It was okay. It was still not the greatest. I was just like so disappointed. I thought, oh, I'm sad I forgot mine. But hey, here's my opportunity to try something else. Tried a nicer, higher quality, and I was, no, way too bitter for me. Way, way too bitter. There was not enough sugar in the world. There was not enough milk in the world to do that. I no. So that was my first day, my first full day in California. It did not work out really well for me. But
tell them the story about yesterday.
the story about yesterday. No, I'm gonna hold that story. I had another tea incident someplace where I went to get tea out yesterday, and it didn't work out like I thought. So anyway, all right, let's move on. And I do have a lot of notes that I've written out and different things today. So you're going to see me looking down a little bit more, and that's because I didn't want to forget anything. Nothing at all. All right, so we're going to talk about some of the meals. So let's talk breakfast. I thought rather than just kind of like, hey, let's do this tea and this is why I would choose it, we're going to kind of go through our meals for the day. So we'll do breakfast, lunch, supper, and a dessert. And we'll kind of talk about teas that pair and why it would pair and why we might not want to pair.
Yes.
Okay. Now I am going to try really hard. And if you see, that's a nice, beautiful reddish color. Now I have to let it cool, so I can't go that fast. All right. So if it's breakfast time, what are we going to pair? Well, I mean, we're told breakfast is the most important meal of the day. So if we wanted to start with a traditional British breakfast, we could do that. Now, what is a traditional British breakfast? Well, according to this, it is um, a lot of hearty foods like eggs and bacon and toast. That's what the internet tells me. I have not yet eaten in England, so I can't guarantee that that's accurate. But something like that. If we even think of a traditional farmer's breakfast, so to speak, here in the States, this is typically where we're going to have like a morning Irish. You're going to have an English breakfast. Or if you're me, you're going to have serene sunrise. You want that bold, robust, high caffeinated black tea because it's going to pair really, really well with, um, for me, it's turkey bacon, but for others, it might be bacon or sausage or steak and eggs or that heavy, hearty, more savory meal.
All of that is a regular breakfast out here. Not just one meat. They get them all.
Yeah, a farmer's market, you might have them all. But like even a corned beef hash in New England, that sort of our heartier breakfast that has a very high meat protein with it. Um, the tea's robust flavor is going to help cut through the richness of the heavier food, and it's going to kind of balance it out a little bit. Now, these teas are also typically enjoyed with milk. A lot of black teas in the morning, they are enjoyed with milk to cut down some of that acidic nature. But that's perfect first thing in the morning. Okay. So nice at the end of the day. All right. The other thing is like if you have a lighter breakfast, our middle child, she lives in Houston, but you would think that she came from California. She is all into the avocado toast, to the point where we frequently try avocado toast over and over again. Her dad likes it. I'm okay with it. Avocado is not my favorite at all. I will try to avoid it if possible because it's not my favorite. But I know there's a ton of people, my husband and daughter included, who love avocado toast or something similar in the morning. If you're going to do a tea like that, then my recommendation is going to be something like a green tea blend like Emerald Garden. Uh, the lighter grassy notes are going to complement kind of that creamy nutty flavor of the avocado. It's going to have a little bit of the of a bite, not even truly astringent, but it's going to balance so the fat that's in the avocado a little bit, so it'll be a good refreshing start to the day. So let's say that you're a little more on the traditional Italian breakfast where they have un cornetto, which is a croissant, or that light pastry in the morning. Somebody who just has like a Danish or a muffin or something on that side, something very light, typically. This is where we're going to say you might even want to start off with peacefulness, or you could start off with like an evening mint that's going to have a little bit of a mint to it. Basically, you're going to want something that has a sweet but floral note to it. You could even go with like a lemon zinger, which is the lemon and ginger is going to have enough zest to kind of balance with the buttery croissant or scone or whatever that you're having. Kind of soothing on the palate, and a nice combination that's going to be pretty easy. Now, what would we not pair together? What would we avoid at breakfast? You're going to want to avoid a super strong, bold tea like some of the black teas with like a really light yogurt. Not like a Greek yogurt even, but like a super light yogurt that may not even necessarily have fruit in it, like kind of a honey yogurt or a vanilla yogurt or something like that. It could you eat them together? Yes, but it's not going to be the ideal combination by any means.
Not rose wine.
Yeah. So you're gonna want something. You don't want that kind of bold, robust black with the super light couple of pieces of fruit or super light yogurt or something on that idea. Okay, so let's move into lunch. Lunch is blueberry coffee cake and lemon zinger. Now there's a combination you could do because the green tea and the lemon zinger tea is going to pair. It's going to be enough to match to the baked good, but you also have the blueberries and lemons complementing each other. That's an excellent choice. Highly encouraged. In fact, we should all. Well, I don't have any stuff to make blueberry coffee cake, so I guess I won't be able to have that tomorrow. But it sounds really delicious. Um, so moving on to lunch, this is where you can be a little more creative. Uh, One of the things that a lot of people would have is like a grilled chicken salad with lunch. I know one of my favorite lunches that I had when I was traveling was literally salad with grilled chicken on it. It was super light. It was delightful. The vegetables were wonderful. Everything was super fresh. And at that point, I was craving that versus more traditional restaurant foods. And I could pair that with a lot of different things. I definitely would have paired it probably with the lemon zinger. I also might, depending on the grilled chicken salad, if I had like a chicken salad itself, I'm depending on the herbs that were used in it, I might actually have paired that with my jade chai, that green tea chai, to kind of complement because the textures and the flavors in the chicken salad would have paired really, really well with kind of that spicy, savory green tea blend. Now, I will tell you that some of the excuse me people I was traveling with, they are sushi lovers. So if they were having sushi at lunch, I would have recommended something like a peacefulness or an evening mint where you have that lavender and peppermint, and it's going to be late and flavorful, but it's not going to be overpowering. It's not going to overpower your sushi, or sushi has such delicate, light flavors. So the other thing is
Emerald Garden.
Emerald Garden would work really well as just a straight green tea blend. That would have been nice. It would be fresh. It would cleanse the palate after you, as you were eating the sushi. So that would be definitely one way to go. Now, let's say that you didn't have the grilled chicken salad and you decided you weren't going to have the chicken salad, um, but you wanted to go with a turkey sandwich and maybe even a turkey club. So for those of you that could be bacon in there and mayo and lettuce and tomato and the turkey, and you're going all out. Well, now some turkey sandwiches are the other way. They'll have stuffing and kind of more of the Thanksgiving palette of flavors in there. Either way, my recommendation with a turkey sandwich, if you were going to pair it, is the afternoon delight. You're going to have the kind of sweetness and the tartness of the hibiscus, because remember that's the cranberry of flowers, but you have a slight floral note to it to complement that turkey. That that if it was after Thanksgiving, you could try our holiday blend, which is a cranberry oolong. That would also work. Either one would work. You're going to have a little bit of the fruit notes. So you have some slight sweetness to it, some saviness, some tart. Really, really great option for midday and an afternoon delight. If by having a black tea at this point, you're going to give yourself a small boost of caffeine, but not anything that's overwhelming that's going to keep you up forever. So the only thing that I do want to warn you about and caution you about is when you are pairing something that is a highly aromatic tea, for instance, like a heavily spiced chai, like that I talked about, you want to make sure that it's not going to clash with the spices in the food. If you are having like a spicy curry, or you don't want to go on flavor overload. You kind of want to balance. It's not you either want your lunch portion to have the spice, and your tea could balance it off by being a little less spicy, or your tea is going to be a little more spicy, and then your lunch will be not, a little bit more moderate in the savoriness. So if you've got if you're having something spicy like curry or something like that, that's where I would definitely go with a more muted tea, just because, there we are. Couldn't find my other notes. Okay, we've made it to dinner already. See, Diane wants avocado with the turkey sandwich. You can have all the avocado, Diane. I am not avocado fan. But let's talk about dinner. So dinner typically has heavier proteins in the U.S., and so here's where you're going to want to try and experiment with some bolder flavors in your tea, so they can really stand up to that heartier meat. This is typically when a lot of people eat beef, and that's what we have. So if you're doing the steak out on the grill, especially as the weather starts to get cool enough that you can actually stand out there long enough to grill, I'm going to go with like the Serene Sunrise or a breakfast blend or a morning Irish. And I'm going to kind of go back to those same reasons why we talked about it with the meat at breakfast. It's going to be able to pair with that steak. It's going to be able to pair really well, kind of cut through any of the fat and that sort of thing, and give you a really nice, robust flavor to match. Let's say that you're having a lighter dinner. Let's even talk about maybe a risotto. I know there were quite a few dishes that I've seen recently as recipes go by that used a mushroom risotto. Not something that I'm going to have just because of an allergy to mushrooms that I have. But a mushroom risotto, a lot of people like that as or a risotto in general for a lunch dish. Um, so what I would actually recommend is what I'm drinking right now that I just stopped to take a sip of is like a maiden's blush. Uh, the rooibos is going to have kind of that earthy note to it. It has just a touch more bite than say a green tea does, but the rose petals are not, because they're not super floral. They just add a sweetness to it, and they back that bite away. It would actually pair really really well with the lighter risotto that people would be eating and enjoying, and so that would be an amazing way to match those together. The tea would really, the maiden's blush would really enhance the complexity of flavors that you typically find in risottos. They're so delicious. We haven't had one in a while. I don't know why we haven't had one in a while, but they're amazing. Okay, some people like going really light for dinner, and they might instead want some like grilled vegetables for a vegetarian or a vegan. And one of the things that I would say is if you're going to go on that kind of lighter note, maybe you were very European in your approach and you had your big meal in that middle of the day, and now you just kind of got your lighter meal at night and you're going with the grilled vegetables. Maybe even a little grilled salad or a grilled chicken with it or something on that idea. Um, this is where you're going to want a little bit more of a robust nature to your tea. So I would say ruby chai. If you have any issues with caffeine, you could go with the onyx chai, but the chai blends, they're going to be a spicier, savorier, and they're going to match the sweetness of the vegetables that you're grilling uh, really, really well. And if you have something lighter like the chicken, it's okay because you would do that. It would be enough to balance the chai flavors. I wouldn't do like grilled vegetables and fish with a chai blend. The chai will really overwhelm it, like we were talking about earlier. So you gotta get a chicken. You would be okay. You could always use any of the chai blends with a beef or a pork or something on like that. I wouldn't do it with fish, but even those that just want to have like a big plate of vegetables, uh, ruby or onyx chai, have at it. It will be a great complement. Um, so what you want to do is avoid at dinner time pairing very light, delicate teas like Harmony or the White Garden that we created together a couple of weeks ago, because it's a white tea and we had the other flavors in there, and that is gonna just you're gonna lose so many of the delicate flavors in that tea when you pair it with like a rich heavy lasagna that's a meat lasagna or a steak or something like that. So you really want to try and make sure you're balancing as we go. Okay, it's time for many people's favorites. I like certain things that are dessert foods, but I am not a all about dessert kind of person. I'm all about the tea, which is why I'm not going to forget my own tea again next time. I'm not doing that. Mm-mm.
You were not happy.
No, I was not happy. Even he knew that. My handy dandy assistant definitely knew from half a country away that I was not happy. Okay, so what do you want to pair with desserts? So desserts tend to be sweet, and they a lot of times they have carb. They're very carby sweet, or they're very sugar sweet. But either way, dessert tends to be the sugar. And so you want to make sure that you're going to have something that's going to balance that a little bit. Okay. So if you're having chocolate cake, now that is actually one of my favorite things is chocolate cake with chocolate icing, as long as the icing's not too sweet. Uh, that is one of my favorite desserts. We'll go to the grocery store every once in a while because I don't want to make a whole cake, and we'll get like the one slice, and then it'll literally last. The two of us will eat on that one slice, and it will last us probably 3 days before we get through the one piece. It's probably about like this big, because we don't eat a lot. But if I was going to have that chocolate cake, then you're going to want to go ahead and you can dip into those black teas. Serene Sunrise would be perfect because you'd have the cinnamon and the chocolate kind of coming together with the robustness of the black tea. Yes, definitely. But the other thing is you could think slightly differently and go with like the Earl's blend where you've got the slight citrusy note of the bergamot and the black tea. That chocolate is really a dark, rich, complex flavor. So you're going to want something like an onyx chai, a black tea like Serene Sunrise, an Earl's blend. You could go with a ruby chai if you wanted to be caffeine free, but you're going to need some of that spice to balance because of the darker, richer flavors. Now, something that I know a couple of you enjoy, and I know my handy dandy assistant loves, is cheesecake. What would I pair with cheesecake? Well, have a friend who likes to join us, and she made for a ladies' tea that we hosted an amazing cheesecake that she used the onyx chai for, so it had the onyx chai flavor. Oh my goodness. I'm not even a huge cheesecake person, and that was amazing to me. But if we wanted to do like a traditional cheesecake that didn't necessarily have flavorings in it or fruit on it or anything like that, just like a straight traditional cheesecake, I'm going to recommend green mint tea. It is lighter to balance the lightness of the cheesecake, and the peppermint will just bring a little bit bite of flavor, but not be overpowering. So you really will get to enjoy both the cheesecake creaminess and the green mint balance together. That's that's how I would recommend if you were going to finish your meal with cheesecake. Enjoy some green mint tea with it. Okay.
Harmony.
Well, I'm not going to hold Harmony for that one. You could do Harmony, but I'm actually going to use Harmony in my next dessert, which would be any kind of fruit tart or um, fruit based dessert. So that could be like a tart, a Danish of some sort, a small slice of fruit pie that doesn't have a ton of crust on it, those kind of things. That's where I'm going to want Harmony because you're going to have the lighter fruit flavors and that's going to balance really well with flavors. I would do lemon zinger. Again, green tea, lemon, and the ginger to balance off with the fruit. And the the subtle notes of the later teas are not going to overpower the fresh, vibrant flavors of the fruit, so that's always important. Uh, okay, strawberry shortcake. Okay, let's talk strawberry shortcake. Strawberry shortcake is very unusual in that it has a couple different ways you could go. It depends on how much shortcake you have with it. So I've seen people who have this little tiny like biscuit, not a huge biscuit, but like just tiny biscuit, and they load it with strawberries and then they put the cream over it. If you're going for that, then I'm gonna say Afternoon Delight to pick up the hibiscus, or you could do Serene Sunrise with the cinnamon again because you're you're loading up that biscuit, and a biscuit's gonna bring a heartier flavor to it. If it's kind of like that sponge cake or an angel food cake, really, really light, and then you're putting your strawberries over it for your strawberry shortcake, then I would actually go with Harmony because that green tea, orange, and strawberry blend is going to really bring it out, and it's not going to overpower that angel food cake or that sponge cake.
Emerald, I would say Emerald Garden. What do you think?
Now that's the other way to go. If you wanted something, now you could use Emerald Garden on that too. But the other thing is if you have an actual yellow cake that you have made and you put strawberries on it, use a blueberry coffee cake muffin as the base. Okay, so if you've got a blueberry coffee cake and then you put strawberries and the whipped cream and stuff over that, then I would probably, you got a lot of flavors, you're making it very complex, not as much of the light. I'm going to recommend Earl's Blend with that because you're going to add in a little bit of the hardiness and robust richness of the black tea, but you're also going to have that bergamot citrus, which is going to bring out both the the blueberry flavor as well as the strawberries, because it's just a great complement. So that's the way I would go. The other option for that is again the lemon zinger, because it's going to do the same two things. It wouldn't be as hearty, but the ginger is also going to be a nice little zing to it. So you've got a couple of options, but that's how it's like you build that strawberry shortcake differently. You're going to want to think about different flavors. Okay, so what would we not pair with dessert? We don't want super over the top sweet teas with the sweet desserts. And I don't mean drinking a traditional southern sweet tea. I mean just some teas that are so loaded with they either have sprayed on sugar or flavoring or anything like that, and that makes it super sweet to your mouth. You're not going to want to do really high sugar with really high sugar. That's going to be too much, and you're not really going to enjoy it either. Item. You're not really going to enjoy either one as much. There you go. The words will come. Uh, you really want to go with a balance here, so you think about that. Think about that as you're doing it. Okay. Yeah, and and for me, it's really hard because I like chocolate cake. I like apple pie. I am not an ice cream fanatic, although every once in a while and a little bit of ice cream. I'm usually like a 3 or 4 bites of ice cream and I'm done. I have certain desserts that I really personally enjoy, uh, but I am not a dessert happy person, and so I'm looking for the complement there. Sweet and too much sugar, too much sweetness is going to be just overwhelming for me, and I'm not going to enjoy it. Now I know that there's sugar addicts out there that'll absolutely love it. I just, it's all good.
Pick it on me.
All right, so if you wanted to start to pair some of your own foods and different things like that, some of the suggestions that I'm going to have for you are: number one, you're going to want to start with somewhat similar flavor profiles. Pair the teas with similar note flavors. For instance, Maiden's Blush. Um, I talked about if you had something that like that turkey sandwich, and I talked about why this or the ruby chai and why that would pair really well with the turkey, because the turkey can match the spices. When we talked about the blueberry coffee cake, and I talked about the lemon zinger, because lemon and blueberry pair really really well together, and lemon and ginger pair well, and lemon and ginger blueberries and ginger pair really well, and they're lighter because there's not, it's not like I took huge handfuls. It's not gonna, the ginger's not gonna overwhelm anything that's in there. So some foods that already kind of complement each other with the tea. So you're finding kind of similar flavor profiles that you would find with food. Um, it's grandma's coffee cake made into muffin. It's really good as a base for strawberry shortcake. That sounds like a dessert I need to try over Thanksgiving, but um, then you want to explain as you move into that. Think about how you would with foods, like we talk about the blueberry and the lemon. They're kind of complementary, contrasting flavors. The ginger is a contrasting flavor in there, but it's not an overwhelming one. So you want to think about that contrast for balance, almost like a balancing contrast, not too much of one thing, not too much. It was one of the issues we dealt with when we were dealing with the white tea, because it's so light and delicate. We couldn't add too much of anything otherwise, or when we wanted to add the lavender to it, too much lavender would have knocked everything out of kilter. So you want to have some contrast in there so that you can make it a really nice complex flavor, but you don't want to overdo it. So you want to make sure you keep into the balance. Consider this season. We are approaching the fall season. That does not mean everything needs to turn into pumpkin spice, but it does mean this is an even more fun time where people are having a lot of food that has cinnamon in it, or they'll have like a little bit of a spicier note to it because of the fall. So having an onyx chai tea pair with a fall traditional food, or a ruby chai, or the serene sunrise with the black tea and the cinnamon. Those are similar flavors to the season. The other one that we'll get is the holiday blend that has that oolong. You remember oolong's halfway between a green tea and a black tea, and then it has the cranberries that have been freeze dried in there, and so it's gonna add into that. A lot of people will do more things with peppermint, and so they'll need that peppermint note, and for when mocha mint comes out and things like that, or the evening mint or the green mint. So think about the different flavors of the season. A lot more people like peppermint type foods closer to the December January time frame. They like a lot more of the pumpkin type foods in September October. That's just how it is. Make sure that when you're trying it out, try it first. Taste it, adjust it. Have a taste of the food, have a taste of the tea. You know, drink some water and then try your tea and then try the food and see, play with it. I'm like, oh, well, this doesn't quite work. Or, oh, yeah, this works really, really well. Well, what if I added some spicy brown mustard to that turkey sandwich so it really pulls up over here? Play with it a little bit. And then my other suggestion and my final one for this is keep a journal, write it down. I write stuff down all the time. I really loved how this paired with this. The whole thing I share with when I talk to people about harmony and how I had that red berry cereal. I wasn't thinking about it at the time. I was just trying to enjoy some green tea in the morning, and I happened to be eating cereal for breakfast. And then all of a sudden, I was like, "Whoa!" I wrote it down so that I wouldn't forget that it paired really, really well together. So don't be afraid to write it up in a journal and keep it, or make a note someplace. So I've been talking about this. I haven't seen any questions come up. My handy dandy assistant hasn't made me aware of any questions that I haven't already answered. Here's your chance to go ahead and put them in the chat. I understand that the handy dandy assistant's causing some ruckus in the chat. I don't know. But go ahead and put your questions in. And I will just say that, pairing food with tea is kind of an art form. It is not, it's something you need to explore. You're not always going to get it right the first time. So many different things have incredible depth of flavor and complex flavors. And sometimes you'll have that piece of turkey, and it will taste a little more robust one time and a little milder the next time. Make adjustments for that. But have fun with it. Explore. Think about how you would pair things together in the culinary world, and then look at what the ingredients are in the tea. That's one of the benefits, is everything that's in the tea is listed for our teas, so it's super easy to know what's in there and what it would and wouldn't do. So I didn't see any questions come in. All right, we will see you all next week. We are definitely, Appealing came out today. I almost drank it again, but I'm going to save it for next week, because we're going to go into a deep dive of how we came up with the idea. Might probably make some while we're here, and then also talk about why it works, why the simple flavors together really work. So we're going to kind of do a deep dive into the appealing tea.
One more comment.
Okay, so, all right, I don't see anything else right now, so
There's one.
We're not going to Genovia for the pear juggling. I'm sorry.
That's for pear cheese.
Oh my goodness. All right, everybody, I will see you all next week. If you have any questions in the meantime, please reach out. I hope you have a wonderful week, and have a great, safe Labor Day tomorrow.